know there are two different types of timbers. So I've come into the forest or into the woods, and we're just going to have a look at the different timbers there are. There's a nice example here because I've got a hardwood, so a natural timber, and I've got a softwood directly behind me. And what I want to make sure is that you understand what the differences are and how we know and what we're looking for. So at the moment, the hardwood tree that I've got over here, can you see them? So those are trees there that haven't got any leaves on, so they're deciduous. The type of tree that lose their leaves over the winter period, and they'll grow back again in spring with their big leaves. So basically they will grow from a seed, it's from a fruit. And behind me here, as you can see, I've got some pine trees. So they're quite tall, skinny types of trees, and they usually have needle type leaves. So if you look at those ones, see, they're kind of long, thin, needle like. So that's the basic difference looking at both of them. There's obviously the difference in the speed that they grow. So that pine tree there, or softwood, grows quite fast. We've already talked through this before. The rings between each one will be quite wide apart, so that means the actual structure, the fibre structure of the tree is not as strong. So softwood, as it implies in the name, is a bit softer. It's used for construction, usually in fast construction. So if you're building a framework for inside a property for the partition wall, they'll use more likely a softwood like that because it's cheaper, it's easy to get hold of. But a tree like this would have probably taken 100+ years to grow, but most pine trees, when they start cultivating them and using them as in forestry and cutting down specifically for construction, they usually get ones that take about 30 years to grow. Now, as we said in the past, pine trees can be grown so they have minimum amounts of branches on them. So actually, trying to think, no, there isn't a very good example here. But what we want to try and do is create a situation where you can grow lots and lots of trees together. So you can see it's quite heavy and clustered here. So the trees are growing nice and straight up. You can see in the background there, I'm hoping, that they're quite straight and very few branches. That makes it a lot easier when they're cutting them down, especially when they want to use them for constructions and you haven't got as much work to do on them. Now this hardwood, possibly an ash, I'm not 100% sure. It could be an oak. No, this actually looks more like an oak tree. So you can see the big tree here. Beautiful big tree there. Now, the thing is, as you know, hardwoods take hundreds of years to grow. So that one behind has definitely been there for a very, very long time. So it's a beautiful tree. It has a beautiful finish. Used very much in furniture making. Also used for boat building, all those type of things. But they're difficult to get. Okay, so we've got some pieces of timber that have already been cut here. They are a possible hardwood by looks of things, but these ones here, he's already stripped all the different branches off, but they're not going to be very good for our world of construction because they're not straight enough. There are too many bows on them, they've got quite a few knots on them. The nice piece of timber, it's more likely that these are going to be chopped up. They could be possibly firewood, so you could be receiving these at home and using them for your fire. Or they could be used in the construction of fences, or farmers might use them for stakes. But as you can see, there isn't a straight enough line that we can use them for doing uprights and making a partition wall or anything like that. But there's a lot that needs to be done before any sort of timber like this can be used. I'm just going to walk up here with Austin. So Austin, can you follow me? So here's a nice example of a sawn piece of timber. Austin, come around here a second. So you've got what looks like a silver birch. You can see it's a nice piece across there. Now, if stages that you have to go through on this piece of timber for the next bit is this needs to be dried. So it'll be taken into a drying room. It'll be stacked up with a gap between each piece to make sure all the moisture comes out. Before doing that though, we need to cut it, and there are lots of different ways of cutting it. What they normally do is cut straight through the centre, and if you cut straight through the centre, you're going to get the maximum width of the piece of wood, and then you can cut straight through and start making some splices. Otherwise, you go the other way and get a quarter turn or a quarter cut, so a quarter sawn piece. So they'll slice this up. Those pieces then will probably be nice you're going to put them into a drying room. They're going to have gaps between each one so the air can flow through. Now there can be two ways of doing that. It can be naturally dried, so it's almost like a natural kiln drying where it's left in the room, and we're hoping that it's not going to twist, warp, turn or anything like that, and all three are different. Or it could be put in a room that's regulated, where they purposely check the moisture in the air and they can calculate how much is coming out until it's perfectly dried and it's safe for us to use. Quite simply, if we took that piece of wood and we cut it ourselves and we were going to put it in a property, because there's moisture in it, that wood could easily twist or it could bow, and you can imagine that as a construction of a property, if that was in the ceiling, your whole floor is going to twist and turn.